Oh, Juno, good evening. Can anybody hear me? Thumbs up or some sort of indication? Awesome, awesome. Well, welcome, Juno. I hope you enjoy your meal. Thank you, Tony. Good to see you again, sandwich artist Tony. All right. So, I'm going to share the screen. Which window? Yeah. All right. So, what I did before tonight's stream is I looked up some alphabets that are not descendant from Phoenician. There are quite a few of them, believe it or not. This one is called Avoyuli, I believe. It Avoy means talk about, and Uli means draw or paint in Raga. It is was created around 1990. It is read Brustafidon, left to right, starting left to right. It's used for 3 different languages and other languages in Vanuatu. If you look at it here, it's got lots of curviness to it. And these symbols don't look like they're really related to any pre-existing alphabets. Um, what's interesting is that they do loop a lot, and they could conceivably be tied together or strung together. As you can see, they also created independent numerals. Pretty easy to deduce how they figured that out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 and 7 seem to be sort of outliers compared to the rest of the script. Now, the thing about these languages is they have a phonology or a phonetics already assigned to them. They have phonotactics, right? The way the syllables form, what's permitted, what's not. So these are a couple of things you have to figure out if you're going to make an alphabet on your own. Um, let's see, there was another one I wanted to show. Let's see if this works. Bam. So this one is a little less rounded. And if you look closely, you can sort of see that even though this is an independently developed alphabet, that some of these characters look as though they resemble some Brahmi abugidas, right? And you can even see that the K, the NG, and where was the P? The P is somewhat similar to some Brahmi symbols. The NY, this looks very much like it came from Burmese, right? The Burmese circle script, I'm sure everyone's familiar with. But this is an independently used alphabet. But I wanted to show it because it gives you a sense of style or a sense of cohesive design across the alphabet. Um, the thing that's interesting is even though it's similar in design to a pre-existing abugida, it is used as an alphabet. Okay. um, there was one more I wanted to show. I think it's, yeah, the Sidetic. I don't know if this one is still used or not. All right. So it's an alphabet. It's read right to left. Languages, the Sidetic language. 31 distinct letters. It's used it was found in inscriptions, plus another 4 characters found only on coins. Recent research is providing updates to the script. There are new letters and variants. Now, if you look at this, you can sort of get the sense of um, Orkhon or Turkic runes, right? But if you look at the assignment of phones to the runes, it's different than the Turkish runes. Um, it is an independent alphabet, but again, it shows us a third style. The first one we saw, Avoyuli, was kind of loop-de-loop. The second we saw was kind of boxy with sharp angles and slight curves, tops and bottoms. This one is very angular. Lots, it looks like a lot of X's and sort of L's and maybe some kappas and even an X there, right? So you can create a cohesive style with a brand new alphabet. Um, Knife energy is correct, Juno. I agree wholeheartedly. Um, the reason that these three were the top three I wanted to show is because even though they were independently developed and used, they still resemble other scripts in use. They still, they, it's very difficult to create a brand new or unique style, although there's no harm in trying. Um, also, because these are used for pre-existing languages, the first step, if you're going to create an alphabet from scratch, the very first step is to decide whether you're doing this for a pre-existing language or you're doing it for a brand new conlang. If you're doing it for a conlang, is this conlang associated with a con culture or a con world? Doesn't writing have something to do with bureaucracy? Does that have any effect on the system, materials, etc.? Well, Tony, I was actually headed in that direction, but excellent questions because those are foundational questions. So what I was saying was if you are using this for a con culture, you must first establish what kind of materials they are writing on and what kind of device they are using to write. For example, the script that you see on screen here, as it was shown above in this image up here, it is etched on stone, right? When you are etching or you are epigraphically writing, epigraphic just means etching or um, putting it in stone, you're going to get those angles. You're going to get those sharp turns. You're going to get the knife energy that Juno's talking about. If you are using papyrus, it's much easier to get sort of the curviness, the waviness. And also it depends on if you are using a bamboo stylus, maybe, you're going to get those wider brush marks. It's also going to be easier to do top curves and angles and such. So let's just say for our purposes tonight, we have a paper producing society. Okay. Doesn't have to be a fully fleshed out con world or con culture or anything of that nature. But our society has paper of some kind. Maybe it's made from skin of an animal. Maybe it's made from tree bark. Or maybe it's made from some other type of plant, like a reed or something. Excuse me. No matter the case, we know we have paper. Now, we have to decide what kind of writing tool we're using. Um, Regardless of what we use, we can sort of adjust it as we go when we're doing our design. Now, once you've established what you're making this alphabet for, the next question is, what sounds are we writing and which sounds are we not? Are we indicating all vowels? Obviously, if we're making an alphabet, we are, because one of the things we have to establish, and I have it here. What was it? Yeah, I thought I had it up, but I didn't. Um, Alphabets are a straightforward system. Each unique sound has a unique symbol. Now, when we go back and we look here, that's not exactly technically correct, right? Because you can have two different symbols for a sound that comes in different positions, even in an alphabet. You could have, for example, the S or the S sound, right? You could use a different symbol when it comes at the beginning of the word or the end of the word or even in the middle of the word, and it would still qualify as an alphabetic letter. Not an abugida, not an abjad, but it just has a different symbol. It gives the reader an indication of the overall composition of the word. Okay. If anybody here is going to end up watching the linearity series that I'm doing, the overall composition of the word will come into play in the linearity series. So you could have one symbol that is used for two different sounds depending on the position. If the symbol comes at the beginning, it's sa, or if it comes at the end, it's sha, right? So that's still an alphabet. These are things that you have to keep in mind when you're looking at your phonemes or your phones that you're going to use. And that is the next big question. So we've answered the first one. What kind of materials are they using? Paper and some sort of stylus, right? The second big question is, what are our sounds? So I'm going to share this other document. And you'll see my sheet of alphabets that I made, or listed rather. And then we're going to look up here. Do you know about that stuff? The Kipu. Yes, Tony, Kipu, I believe is what you're talking about. Um, it is Quipu. I believe that's what you're talking about. Um, that's Incan. It was used by the Incans. And I know enough to get in trouble, but it is not an alphabetic system that I know of. If I remember correctly, different knots are used to indicate different ideas, and then other knots are used to count them. And then there's like a third series of knots that are used to indicate lineage or what's the word? Provenance, like where something comes from, because they were used a lot in trade. Um, so, but back to this here. So I picked this set of phones or phonemes. Um, if anybody online, and there's only a few of us, but if anybody online care to guess what language this is, because I did take it from an actual language. There are 23 consonant sounds. Anybody? No? I'll give you a clue. It's a auxlang, auxiliary language, auxiliary conlang. And very close, Juno, very close. It's Esperanto, and Edo was a revision or an attempt to revise Esperanto. Very good, Tony. Very good. It is Esperanto. And I just took the basic 5 vowels. I did not take the diphthongs because diphthongs, uh, we're not really worried about making diphthongs just yet because we're working on how to make an alphabet from scratch. Spelling rules are usually what dictate diphthongs, because you can actually use a W instead of AU, or you could use AY instead of EI in English and get the same sounds depending on the word um, and the other letters involved or the other sounds involved. So spelling rules are also not what we're going to cover here. Spelling rules are later in the development of a conlang with diachronic changes to the phonemes, right? Sound changes and such. So, like in English, we had the great vowel shift in English, right, which changed the pronunciation of words, but not so much the spelling of words. It also happened around the time that Gutenberg made his printing press, and the printing press was being widely dispersed, which is why for a long time there were no standardized spellings of words. Okay, so the next screen I'm going to share is going to be our, now on the palette, we don't need to worry so much about everything looking perfect. We just need it to look presentable, because what's going to happen is you're going to create your 23 consonants and your 5 vowels, and they don't have to mirror each other. They don't have to be sort of Tengwar-esque. They can be completely random or asemic, depending on your preference. However, if you know that you want your, let's say, plosives to be similar in nature, to give it sort of like a, manner of articulation feel, you can do that. You can start with some basic designs. Let's say we start with something that looks like a circle. Yeah. Let's say we want this to be pa, or even better yet, we want it to be ma. So we got a circle for ma. We know that's bilabial. Well, pa is our plosive, which is bilabial. So we can say, we just put a straight line right down the middle. Yeah. So we got our pa. Um, kind of looks like a P on both sides or a Q or something. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Well, we got our circle, and now we know we need our ta, right? Our dental plosive. What do you think? You think a line this way, or we could undo that and we could do it's sitting on a ledge, the ta, right? Maybe we're thinking about the teeth here, something like that. And we're going to do the velar, the ka, and we're just going to do it on this side. All right. So we got some plosives here, and we got our ma, our bilabial there, our bilabial nasal. All right. So we know this is bilabial, this is bilabial, but these are plosive, and they're arranged in different ways, right? Now, if we really wanted to get fancy with it, what we could do is we could say, okay, there's that. And for our voiced, we could say we put a line out this way. Yeah. Then we got our voiced dental come up this way, like so. You're starting to see the pattern there. And then we got our velar here. Start at the top, move our way to it. And now what we've also done is we've sort of established a writing direction too. By starting at the top left and moving to the right, we are establishing that this is most likely going to be a left to right system. Now, my handwriting on this screen is absolutely atrocious, but that's only because it's on a screen. If I was doing this on paper, it would look much different. Unfortunately, I don't have the rig for that kind of presentation, but I think the gist is getting through. If you have questions, please feel free to interject at any time. So we've got our plosives and our bilabial nasal, but we don't have our alveolar nasal. So let's do something funky since we've established a pattern here, but we know that and n are different. Maybe this is, you know, the circle represents something. But again, this is an alphabet from scratch. We're not deriving this from any ideographs or logographs or anything like that. This is not a rebus principle thing. This is straight from scratch. But we've got this line that's going to the right here to show voicing. And n isn't really voiced or unvoiced, it's just nasal. But who says we can't have a little fun with it, right? Start from the bottom this time and go that way. Now, most likely, what's going to happen with this character over time is it's going to turn into something like this. Okay, just in the speed of writing. Okay, so we can go ahead and mark this part out as an older form. Okay, now according to our phones, now we have the affricates. We have 4 total affricates: ts, z, ch, and j. Yeah. Now we have to decide how different we want the affricates to be. We kind of played out the circle motif here a little bit, but that doesn't mean we can't include some sort of something with it. But let's say sa starts up here because again we're doing top left to bottom right, and there's our circle. Yes, thank you, Logan. You're right. I did forget about uh, the pairing there with the bilabial nasal. Thank you. All right, so that's our tsa or atsa. Let's do our adza. We could say a little bit of that. Again, this one's probably going to end up being something closer to that as time goes on. That bar to the right is going to drop, especially if we are writing right to left. After a while, it's just going to sort of naturally flow that we want to bring the character down as we are moving from left to right. With making circles might be hard to repeat because of laziness, etc. Well, Tony, yes. And that's kind of the point of this whole presentation is to show you when you start with a design, you very rarely will end up with the initial design. This is a template or a protoform, if you will, uh, to understand that making an alphabet from scratch does not have, excuse me, does not have to rely on a logography to start with, right? Um, Probably the one that I go to sometimes is Bopomofo, when you want to show how a logogram or an ideogram or pictogram ends up resulting in a phonetic symbol or a symbol that's used for phonetic spelling. Because even with Bopomofo, it's still not truly an alphabet. It's kind of an abugida-ish type weird looking thing. It's a mix, right? But again, it's only used for phonetic spelling in teaching. Um, okay. Thank you, Demetrius. Um, let's get back to this here. Honestly, I do both diachronic and exiting a little bit for making writing systems depending on what I feel like doing. Yes, it is sort of mood dependent. Um, the from scratch method is how I often start. And this one that we're doing here mirrors an attempt that I have in a notebook somewhere, which is why I'm using it. I didn't get as far as I wanted to. Can you do something like how Chinese breaks into 8 essential brush strokes? And good evening, Danielle. Nice to have you. So, Tony, I think once we get some more letters up here, I think you're going to see that there are only about 8 or 9 total strokes involved in this sort of proto alphabet. Okay. But we've got our ts and we've got our z. Okay. Now, to do the ch and the j, we could kind of, we're starting here with our circles here. Maybe we drop a line. Yeah. Maybe we drop a line. Now here we started up here and we went this way, right? Doesn't mean we can't come up here and make a line there, right? Don't hesitate to deviate. I'm going to say that again. Don't hesitate to deviate. Just because you started with a pattern of design doesn't mean you have to continue with the pattern of design. If you look at the Latin alphabet, some of those characters, even though they were borrowed wholesale from Etruscan and Greek and etc., they do deviate. When the Greeks borrowed them from the Phoenicians, they deviate a lot. So don't be afraid to, once you've started a pattern, to add flares or lines or even brand new characters, sort of like we did with the n, right? Because we were all with circles up until that point. Now this one is old, so we're going to leave that one set. Okay. So we've got our ts, our z, our ch, and our j. That's a lot on the j, right? It's a lot on the j, but we're going to leave it for now. Because remember, we're just making these protoforms, and then as we go and as we write, we'll establish sort of a pattern, maybe even linking a few letters together. If we go back to our consonants, now we have the fricatives. We got fa, va, sa, za, sha, ja, ha, and ha. Now you can pair these off if you want to, or you can get a little weird with it. And I'll show you what I mean by weird. So fa and va. In a lot of excuse me, in a lot of European languages and Indo-European languages, fa and va are not as prevalent, uh, not as frequent. So you can be a little strange with them, or you can try to match something higher up on the chart. And what I mean by that is fa and va can be very closely related to your characters for pa and ba, because in some languages, um, they can they do sort of switch out allophonically, or in spelling, diachronic spelling changes end up influencing language changes. A good example would be um, the word for speaking in Portuguese and Spanish. In Spanish, it's habla, but in Portuguese, it's fala. There's a sound change there, but those sounds are related, so the symbols can be related, or they can be completely different. Um, so let's say fa is similar to this, but then we're going to come down, straight down. Yeah, sort of looks like the pa, and here's our ba. Yeah, but we don't want to add to this. This is already like 3 strokes, right? 3 strokes is usually pretty good. If you look at the Latin alphabet, almost every single character is 3 or fewer strokes. I don't know where you learned to write. Maybe it's a little different. I don't think so. Most people, when they write in all caps, you got your 1, 2, 3 for your A, your 1, 2 for your B. If you do it in your head, you'll see like the E, uh, and maybe 1 or 2 others have more than 3. Like the E for me is 4. It's down 1, 2, 3. That's 4. So keeping your letters to 3 strokes or less for alphabets is pretty much ideal. Demetrius asks, "Tsa and za derivation like Turkish, light or hard?" We're not dealing with we're not dealing with the sound so much. We're worried. We're more focused on the letter development. Okay. So this is our fa. So let's do, because this is our ba and we already have 3 strokes there. Let's do something a little weird here. And instead of coming up from the top here for the fa, we're just going to start right there and come then straight down. Now it looks a little similar to the pa, but this line is actually meant to go all the way up. So now this looks almost familiar, right? Kind of looks like a Greek letter to me, but we don't care. We don't care because when we write it out, it's going to look different. All right. So our next set is sa and za, or sa and za, depending on how you want to play. Now, now we're really going to get weird. We're really going to get weird. For sa, we're going to go like this, and then we're going to come like this. And yes, I'm aware that that looks like an Arabic letter. That's fine. It's fine. It's totally fine. It won't look that way when you write it out because when you start writing fast, it's all going to match together. Yes, Juno, thank you. Now, for the za, we're going to start over here again, and we're going to come down this way, but we're going to stop a little early. We're going to go straight down. Okay, there's your za. Why? Because why not? Let's be weird. Let's be weird. It's fine. And then we got our sha and our za. All right. And for these, if you want to be if you want to be sort of very specific, so that every character has its own unique form, that's fine. It's not always necessary though. So for sha, I like this because it's easy to write and it does sort of look like the sa. Yeah. And then for the ja, come down, go like that. And then maybe you cut back up. Again, I'm writing on a computer screen with a mouse, so please forgive the horrible appearance. Now, we have a lot of letters and not a lot of space left. We actually have 5 more consonants to do. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to save this image and put it on my Word doc. We'll come back to that here in a minute. Okay. And so I'm going to clean all of this up. Look at that. Don't let me forget where we were. We got ha and ha to do. Pretty sure. Yep. Ha and ha. So we haven't been gumming from the top right to the bottom left because of our direction of writing. But what if we start here? Oh, that's not the right device. Sorry about that. All right. H like X, ch, z, ch, Gothic, or silent. Demetrius, I'm not sure exactly what you're saying. Again, we're worried about design concept here, how to build an alphabet. So we're going to start here. We're going to come down and go there for our ha, and then almost the same. There's the ha. Most alphabets that I've seen, the ha is more common than the ha, and therefore is typically less complex of a character. But who cares? You're making this from scratch, right? Um, then we've got the la, the ya, and the ra. Now, depending on your language, your R and your L, your liquids, are going to bump up against your other consonants often, right? It's just the way human language works. Now, again, if you're making this for a con world, uh, your 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 mileage might differ, right? But in most human languages, R and L will tend to bump up against your plosives and maybe your fricatives on a pretty regular basis. So when I make an alphabet that I know is used for a more human language or exactly a human language, I'm going to make them somewhat simpler than the rest of the characters. No, you're right, Tony. But again, uh, so we're not doing this on lined paper. We're doing this free form on an open palette. So it's going to look a little weird. If you want to do yourself a favor, imagine sort of that. Um, so it kind of looks like musical notes here, but whatever. See if I can take. Oh, look at that! I could take those away. Neato. I appreciate you saying no judgment, but you can judge. It's fine. Demetrius, we're not dealing with aspirated sound right now. You're an awesome person, but you keep talking about sounds. We're only doing an alphabet. Um, so L, Y, and R. Yes, long ass letters. It's fine. It's fine. Yes, R and L. Yes, Juno. R and L in people's handwritings tend to be murdered. My name, Carl, I can attest. They almost disappear when I do a signature. Uh, almost every time. So let's be simple, okay? And this is going to look weird, but we're starting up left and we're going down right. Well, that's not what I wanted. Excuse me. Ah, this program's cool, but it's not the best. So there's your L, not your R, and then your R, just sort of like that. Now, if you look at those imaginary lines, they're just going to be right there in that imaginary line. Again, I'm drawing on a computer. It's a single L, Demetrius. Single L. O. La 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 la. All right. And then the Y or the Y. um, did we did? Oh, that's right. Esperanto doesn't have a W, or it uses the U for W. We'll make one. We'll make one. Why not? So we're going to do Y and W. So we end up with 24 consonants. I'm trying to remember what I had in my notebook because I didn't bring it out with me. Um, but let's get a little silly here. That can be either one. Doesn't matter to me. Matter of fact, let's do it this way. Let's make that wa. Yeah. And then if I remember correctly, it was something like this for wa. All right. Let me save those to our document. All right, by my count, we have 24 consonants. Dark L is a hood sound. Not sure what you mean by that, Demetrius, but I do appreciate the input. Okay, now let's see if I can share the other. Okay, so here's our document. All right, and as you can see here, we've got our first 4 rows. We've got our nasals, we've got our plosives, we've got our affricates, excuse me, our fricatives, and we've got our approximates. We've got all 24 consonants, and we included wa um, in the in what we made, even though it's not in the consonant chart for Esperanto. Now we've got 5 vowels. Now, again, I want to stress we are making an alphabet. We are not making an abugida. We are not making a syllabary. We are making, and not an abjad either. We are making an alphabet. So we want our vowels to be somewhat distinct, but not distinct enough to where they look like they come from a different script, right? And in doing so, we have to be careful. Ooh, almost hit the wrong button there. Don't want to end the stream. Why did they put the share button and the end stream button like centimeters apart? It's weird. All right, so on here, we're going to clean this up. All right. Now for vowels, because the call of the void, yes. Uh, for for vowels, we don't. We don't want to necessarily mirror our consonants, but again, depending on how your language works overall, you might want to have them somewhat similar to like your liquids or even your approximates. Like the vowel might, maybe you want it to be close to the ya consonant. Maybe you don't. Maybe you want them all to be distinct. Well, I think you got the sense of sort of loops and lines and angles, right? That's the theme of this script, sort of. Not very well thought out, but it's an old notebook, okay? Um, so let's make the vowels distinct enough. Let's say that the ah is just a line, okay? And for the or the e, we could say it's a line that comes down here and sort of curves. I don't like the way that looks. Give me a second. There we go. That's better. Diacritics because the people say so. No, Tony, that's not an alphabet. What is that? I don't know why that's there. Ah, okay. Doesn't matter. So we got our we got our eh. Now, if we look at our other document for our yeah, it looks like almost like a 2. So let's just say that's our I or our E. And then for our O, let's be weird about it. Say the O comes down like that. Yeah, top left to bottom right. Okay. And for the U, why not? If I remember correctly, no, that looks disgusting. It looks actually absolutely hideous. That's better. Please forgive me. Those 2 letters look like a face. Okay, I'll buy that. I'll buy that completely. All right, so we got our vowels. We only needed 5. Now, again, we're not dealing with sound changes. We're not doing any of the diachronics. We're not doing any of that. All we are going to do is worry about how to write. That's all we're doing. Yes, Juno, every artist ever is their own worst critic. I completely agree with that. So now I'm going to switch up programs because why not? And we're going to do some copy pasting. Now, I want everybody to keep in mind that these are rough designs. And I can assure you that if you are following along at home with a notebook and a pencil or a pen or maybe even a um, calligraphy set of some kind, you can probably make these look 10 times better than they already do. And I would not be upset about it at all if you were to publish this later and say, look what I made. Okay. Demetrius, you were not on the stream, I believe, when we started. I did talk about the fact that we weren't going to do diphthongs because this is not about how to spell. This is about how to make an alphabet that that has a thematic design or a consistent, cohesive design without worrying about the actual language development later. Um, we used Esperanto's sounds, but we're not worried about spelling out Esperanto words. Okay? But it's a valid question. Okay. Let's make sure you guys can see what I'm doing and you're not just listening to me talk. So, all right. So I'm going to put everything from our design template over into Paint. And we got some sizing issues here, right? We can deal with that. We can work with that. It's not a big deal. We're going to save this. Doesn't matter what we save it as. Call it Alpha 3. Why not? Alpha 3. Looks like the most common CV syllable in Esperanto is la. Perhaps there could be one random syllable character for la, like the random T character in Coptic. So, Logan, you make an excellent point that some languages do develop a frequency of use character, because that's what I would call that or refer to it as, sort of informally, frequency of use character. The problem is we're not doing Esperanto. We use their phonemes, sure, but that's just to show that a character set of over 25 is possible with a very basic design, and then you let it evolve as you write with it. So we're not exactly doing Esperanto, just to make that abundantly clear. And Juno says, i.e., like how the Latin alphabet can be used to write many languages, and thus how words are spelled, languages specific. Yes, thank you, Juno. That is driving home the point perfectly. Alphabets do not have to be language specific, uh, and the way they are used to spell are language specific, not script specific. So yeah, there's a distinction there. And the Castithans writing is an Abagida. That's correct. No need to apologize, Tony. There's so many writing systems out there. We all get a little confused. Yesterday, I couldn't remember the term objad. I was completely at a loss for the word objad. I was having a conversation with someone I know, and I could not remember to save my life. Objad. Oh, this is a little big, so we're going to small it down a little bit there. Oh, look at that. Now, these are our older forms here. We don't really need these. They're still on our document, so we can always go back to them if we need to. Okay. And here we go. All right. So pop quiz. This here is what letter? Anybody? Anybody? Nobody knows? This is going to look weird, but I know what I'm doing. The first letter was not P, Tony. That is incorrect, sir. Don't worry about it. There are no points off. Nobody's keeping score. All right. This right here is M-A-I-N. So if we were using this for English, the word would be main, as in the main theme or the main story. Okay? Now, if I use, let's use this brush here, the oil brush, and I use the red, let's use the dark red. Why not? This is like Sesame Street with except with made up letters. Tony, you know what, buddy? You're 100% right. There's no doubt in my mind that that is exactly uh, how I feel about this. Let's actually, we need to, where's our brush? Okay. All right. Let's do this. Let me get a look at the zoop. Let me go, zoop. It's rough. Again, I'm doing this on a computer screen, but you get the idea, right? Now, because we put these flourishes on the E, the O, and the U, we could actually, in writing, elongate the A to a descender, make it a descender to give it that distinction so that it doesn't get swallowed up between these other characters here. I'll show you what that looks like real quick. So we got our M, then we go A, we get our I, and then our N, right? I know that looks like 0129, but it's not. All right. That brush is absolutely gigantic. There's got to be a smaller one. Let's do the calligraphy pen. I don't like the direction it goes in, though. Oh, that's kind of nice. That's kind of pretty. All right, let's do a different word. Let's do the word relax, but we don't have an x, so we would have to spell out ks, right? If we were spelling phonemically. Now, this is a point that I'm going to be talking about in the linearity series. The only way that you read an alphabet in a linear sense is if it is exactly phonemic. Not phonetic, phonemic. One-to-one phonemes pronounced exactly as they are spelled. That is the only way you ever read an alphabet linear, in a linear manner. So, but let's do that. Let's spell out RELAKS in our system here. And I'm not going to use that huge brush. Okay. Where did our R go? That's R. No, that's the L. The R is this one here. So come up like that. Jeez, Pete's, that's disgusting. Heck, let's use a crayon. Let's go full Sesame Street for Tony. It just doesn't look good. But that's our R. Then we're going to do our E. Then we got our L. And bring that down a little bit. And we got our A. We're going to have to make this bigger. And we're going to do our K. Anybody remember which one the K is? Capital letter as a pitch. Demetrius, the capital letter thing is very Eurocentric. Outside of Europe, it's not really a thing. So this system might develop some sort of word initial indicator or maybe even phrase initial indicator, but I don't know about capital letters. But we got our A. Now our PTK, so we got our K there. Right? You have to make it even a little bigger for the S. Oh gosh, now I want to design a writing system with multigraphs that satisfy the hemming property so you can read it without backtracking despite not being purely phonemic. Okay, cool. Where was our S? Anybody remember where the S was? Because I do. It's right there. Pull that out a little bit. So that would be relax. All right. Not, there's our main, there's our relax, right? Kind of looks like some weird graffiti there. But you get the sense that what we've done is we've created an alphabet from scratch using similar design principles, meaning we started with a concept of some circles and how to indicate different places of articulation and manners of articulation, but then we continued to derive and push the theme a little further as we went, right? So that you get this very unique set of characters. Thank you, Demetrius. My head is blocking the screen. It is. It's because our image got so big. Here, that doesn't move it. How about this? How about I zoom in and then I move it over? Ah, didn't know I was that smart, did you? There we go. So there's your relax. There's main and there's relax. All right, so let's stop sharing there. Thank you, Tony. Without your encouragement, I don't know where I'd be. But Logan brings up a point about the Hamming property. What in the world does that mean? Yeah, so I don't know what the Hamming property has to do with designing an alphabet, but thank you. So let's go back over this real quick, though. We got about 11 minutes, give or take. You thought your pi is one alphabet, but it was a combined one, as I see. Yes, sure. Thank you, Demetrius. So the first thing you have to decide is whether you're doing this for a natural language or whether you're doing this for a conlang associated with a con world or con culture. If it is the latter, then you have to decide what kind of materials they are using and what kind of tool or device they are writing with. The materials can play a role in the overall design aesthetic. So there is no sequence of glyphs that form multigraph, which is a prefix of another multigraph. Yeah, you know what, Logan? I'll have to get with you later on that because I'm not sure exactly what it is you're asking, but we could talk about it some other time. Uh, so once you've decided whether it's affiliated with a or associated with a natural language or conlang, and you decided what materials they have available to them, i.e., their what they are writing on and what they are writing with, this will help to inform your overall design aesthetic and development phase. Meaning, do you start with straight lines or do you start with curvy brushstrokes? Keep in mind the Chinese system that everyone is familiar with was not possible for the first couple hundred years of its existence because it was being etched into wood and turtle shells. The oracle bone script was first etched into wood and turtle shells and bone, different types of bones. It was not the flowing, elegant, brush stroked system that we know today. And the 8 brush strokes that were mentioned earlier, I believe by Tony, were not a thing. That was a sort of reverse engineered thing later on. So once you've established the materials available to you and you use that to inform your design aesthetic and your design method. Thank you, Juno. That's funny. Um, Once you've decided and you that informs your design method, then you have to think about the phones involved because you're developing an alphabet. Remember, an alphabet is typically historically been designed, or excuse me, derived rather from logographs, ideographs, etc. However, as we looked earlier in the video or in the stream, there are quite a few out there that are freeform, designed, not derived. They are unique unto themselves, and so don't hesitate to deviate after you've created. Create and then deviate. And as you write and come up with some sample words, even if you don't have a fully fleshed out phonology, even if you don't have a fully fleshed out syntax or any of that stuff. Once you've decided on some phones and some symbols, start writing them out, make samples, make as many samples as you need to sort of establish a pattern, because the patterns will form after a while. If you look at any cursive of any existing alphabet, note that I said alphabet, you'll see that there are established patterns that arise not just because you are writing in cursive, but because of the design or uh, the formation of the letters themselves. That will happen to your script as well, especially if each independent letter is somewhat different. I'll give you an example. Um, when you're in English using the Latin alphabet, when you are writing the letters D, T, P, B, uh, and even letters like R, yeah, you're typically starting at the top left and working your way through the strokes of the characters. But when you are writing letters like O and Q, uh, you can start kind of at the top, or you can start at the bottom. You can start pretty much where you want to because they're circular, right? When you start with an A, you're not starting at the top left, you're starting at the top middle. So there are deviations, even though, uh, and those, of course, that was non cursive description that I was just giving you. So there are patterns that develop over time in a design aesthetic, whether you intend them to or not, especially if you just continue to write. And if you do have some fleshed out phonology and some fleshed out syntax, and you just sit down and make up 20 to 30 random characters and you continue to write them, even if they're completely random and unassociated, like the ones that we made were associated, we had some deviation there, but they were associated, they were of a similar aesthetic. Even if you just make up 30 different looking weird characters, if you write them quick enough and frequently enough, they will develop into a very unique system. That is a guarantee. You would almost have to do it daily, though, for maybe a while, 6 months to a year, before you got to a system that you were probably comfortable with, based on not just the design aesthetic, but the overall function. How do the letters form together? Um, is cursive possible? Most likely it would be, but how do they connect? Top, bottom, middle? Do they cross over? Are there any intersecting lines? These are questions that would come about as you are designing it. So the last 5 minutes here, I'll open it up for questions or comments. If you want to tell me how badly my handwriting looked on screen, I am open to that criticism because I already know. Demetrius says, I could thought a pre-Greek, Etruscan, Roman combined alphabet as a concept with Welsh sound. You know, Tolkien tricks. Okay. Thank you, Demetrius. Juno, I know you have to get up early. I do appreciate you joining. Your comments were welcome, and I'm glad you were able to watch. So thank you. Have a good night, Juno. What other tool could be used to write? Cuneiform was a reed. That is correct, Tony. So different tools that have been used have included, of course, bird quills, feather pieces, sticks, bamboo sticks, other types of sticks. Bone has been used as well. It is attested in Chinese early or later after the wood carving and bone carving that they would use small fragments of bone, usually animal bone, yes, but bone nonetheless. They would shave it down on the side and they would use the tip as the stylus part. Metal has been used, wood, obviously, as I said, bamboo, other types of wood. I'm pretty sure that in some parts of uh, Mesoamerica, they used to use stone on stone to carve. It depends on the kind of stone you're using, obviously, as to how well it's going to actually do. Some of the inscriptions that I saw for some of the Mesoamerican sites look a little suspect, but pretty much any hard object that can hold ink or could scrape can be used as a writing utensil. Um, uh, I don't know. I can't think of anything else other than soft things used on soft materials. If you're writing on paper, papyrus, or even animal skin, you could use a softer object such as a reed stylus. Well, everyone, I hope you've enjoyed this on how to make an alphabet from scratch. I appreciate everybody watching. The next live stream will probably be in about 2 weeks, and I'm thinking of a topic, and just it's either going to be um, baseline logography design. We already did that one, didn't we? I don't. That's probably why I was thinking about it. Objods. We'll talk about objods. How about that? Yeah, that sounds good. Objods. So give me about 2 weeks to put something together for objods, and we'll have another live stream. All right. Keep scripting, everyone. Thank you.